Well, it's time now for our press review. Solange Mougin is here in studio to take a look through the papers with us. And it's time to start off with a look at how the papers are covering British Prime Minister Liz Truss's shock resignation on Thursday.
Yeah, and naturally, the UK's political upheaval is sprawled across the British papers. As we see today, gone in 44 days. That's the headline today of The Eye. It says that Truss has promised that there will be a new premier by Friday. But before we get into who that could be, The Guardian has an analysis piece and looks at why she was in office for such a very short time. For The Guardian, Truss caused disruption in all of the wrong places and tried to tear up the status quo, but only left people poorer and her party in tatters. Now, for the Washington Post, its analysis piece it says that she made self-destructive mistakes that imposed, quote, simplistic right-wing economic policies that only work in theory but not in practice. And the Post says that it must be a warning for populists all across the world. Now, the same paper's cartoon takes on the short tenure of Truss's. It says that her record of shortest term for a British Prime Minister is akin to the life of a mayfly. They actually live between 5 minutes and 2 days. So a bit of an exaggeration there. But Michael de Adder's cartoon has flies saying to each other, she's the only Prime Minister I've ever known.
The big question then, Solange, who could be the next Prime Minister?
Well, there is the possibility of a general election, and that's the cover today of the Daily Mirror. The British people demand a general election now, it says. But if a Tory can get 100 nominations from fellow MPs, he or she could become the next Prime Minister. And that is where Boris Johnson comes in. The Daily Telegraph says that Boris Johnson feels that he is the one that can save the Tory party. There are others as well in the running, including Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt. But with Truss's wax figurine at Madame Tussauds still a pile of wax, the Tribune de Genève's illustrator Herman argues that it might be better for their version of the wax statue of Boris Johnson to just be popped back in.
So lots of the papers then poking fun at Truss, some of them referring to a lettuce. What's that all about? Yeah,
earlier this month, The Economist quipped that Truss, they call her the iceberg lady in the article, had a shelf life of a lettuce. Well, The Guardian explains that the Daily Star, they went with this and went with it big time. The Daily Star created a live feed of a lettuce in a blonde wig. You see it there, slowly going past its prime. And then Truss resigned, which means that the lettuce won. So as we see on the cover of the Daily Star in their historic souvenir edition, let us rejoice. Fun wordplay there. The paper writes that the crowned salad outlasted Liz, who wilted in the political heat. And this was inspiration for The Independent's Dan Brown's cartoon as well. He has a drooping lettuce Liz and an empty Chateau Boris wine bottle in the trash. And since we're on the topic of food and the UK, it's important to note The Economist's cover this week. Welcome to Brittany, it says. Now, this is a controversial cover. The magazine has received quite a bit of pushback for saying that the UK has become Italy, quote, a country of political instability, low growth and subordination to the markets, end quote, a notion that has not pleased London or Rome.
Turning then, Solange, to another big story here in Europe and that gas roadmap that was agreed in the middle of the night by EU leaders.
Yeah, it's important to note that this isn't an announcement of a deal, but a roadmap. And the FT explains, though, that nonetheless it is significant, this roadmap, because of Germany's refusal to concede. It has moved back on that and is now potentially okay on a gas cap. Nonetheless, the coming negotiations will be difficult. Now, there has been a deal, though, not just a roadmap, an actual deal between France, Spain, and Portugal. As El País tells us, this is on another subject, that of an overland pipeline. They've agreed to scrap that idea of passing a pipeline over the Pyrenees and rather go with an underwater one, bringing an end to a very long dispute between them.
Now, there are a couple of major court cases that have been making headlines as well this morning, Solange.
Yeah, the New York Times tells us that a jury has cleared actor Kevin Spacey in a civil trial. The accusation was that he assaulted a 14-year-old fellow actor. After 90 minutes of deliberation, the court case was thrown out. But for context, the New York Times reminds us that this accusation was a first of over a dozen others of similar sexual assault claims against Spacey. Now, another court case entirely. The Wall Street Journal is taking us into the chess world. It explains that 19-year-old chess grandmaster Hans Niemann, who we see here, he has sued chess.com and the world champion Magnus Carlsen for $100 million in damages. Nielsen claims there is a conspiracy against him after the surprise upset match. Now, the game's aftermath brought viral attention to all of the zany ways that one can cheat in chess. And it looks like, as the Wall Street Journal shows us, that this saga continues.
Another competition then, Solange, you're leaving us with a fun contest. Tell us about that.
Yeah, as Forbes tells us today, the Comedy Wildlife Photo Awards, well, the finalists, the many finalists have been chosen. Some 40 images were picked from thousands of them. I particularly like this one, you can see it there, entitled Pegasus the Flying Bull. Or this one, which is entitled, very aptly Britishly, Keep Calm and Carry On, as you see the penguins there. And the winner will be selected in December. The competition is for a good cause. The money will go to the Whitley Fund for Nature. It has funneled £20 million to more than 200 wildlife conservationists. And to boot, it puts you in a good mood, or it put me in a good mood as you look at the photos. My favorite is this one, an image of two wallabies playing or perhaps fighting on a beach in Australia.
A stunning but playful end to our press review. That's Solange Moujon. Thanks for joining us with that, Solange.